Africa's only imported vaccine from the Botswana Vaccine Institute. And that has meant that we've been subject to their manufacturing difficulties. So for instance, in December, they had a mandatory shutdown in terms of the regulations to do cleaning in their factory. That meant for a few weeks there was no production. And that is why what we have now done, the approach of the department and the ministry, is to now bring in other suppliers. Much like we did during COVID, instead of relying on a single vaccine producer, we're bringing in vaccines from a number of different countries and different suppliers, testing them via SAHPRA, getting the emergency approval, so that what we then create is a lake of vaccines that we can then pump into the sector. So we never run dry of vaccines again. And that's a number of sources. We'll continue with BVI.
So they provide the vaccine, then who's going to provide the vaccinations? How will that work logistically?
So the idea is that you would take the vaccination out to farm level to be able to do the vaccination. You don't want to bring animals together in a certain area to start the vaccination process.
Just going back to the logistics of this, we're talking about, using the private sector and the state vets as well. In terms of storage, capacity, cold storage as well, where are we going to store all these vaccines?
Well,
where are these state vets working from, where the private vets working from? Are you sure that they have the capacity and the facilities to be able to store and vaccinate?
I'm very confident that we will have that, working together with the private sector. We have the storage facility at OBP, honest to put. It's where all the vaccines that have come in to date.
But OBP seems dysfunctional. That's why you also ordered a forensic investigation into where the money is. 500 million rand, poof, gone.
Yeah, well, that's the OBP that I inherited. The OBP that I am now the minister for is in a much better condition than it was when I took over. They had a better audit outcome. There's a new team there, and we are busy restoring OBP to its rightful place as an international centre for animal health, and has played a very important role in the past. And we have to use these institutions, and we have to use institutions like the Agricultural Research Council to assist us with the scientific and technological.
How do we know? Because the strand keeps mutating.
The strand doesn't keep mutating. There are, in South Africa, present 3 strains, SAT1, SAT2, and SAT3 strains. And those are similar strains that happen throughout most of Africa. There's some other countries, for instance, Kenya, that has an A and an O. We have only detected SAT1, 2, and 3 strains here in South Africa. And so those, majority of it is SAT2, particularly in places like KwaZulu-Natal and the Free State. And what that does is allow us to match. For the first time ever in 14 years, we've also now submitted field strains to the Pirbright Institute internationally. Now, what that would do is enable them to test our field strains again and then match it against any other potential vaccines out there in the world that we could then use for the strain. And I'm very, very glad that we've been able to do that. I don't think it was a good idea for us to have stopped doing it 14 years ago. And it's also a world reference laboratory. But
I also want to clarify some of the issues going around out there about the public-private partnership. It does appear, or there have been allegations, that the private sector has actually been blocked, that the state wants to run this on their own and they don't want to involve the private sector.
Well, that's not true, and it's completely shown up by the fact that right from the very beginning, from the first Indaba, the private sector were involved. The ministerial task team, the private sector, 50% of that committee is made up of the private sector. The team now that has been tasked with monitoring implementation is private sector.
Do you think that farmers listening to you now saying you've kept every commitment?
Yes, I've
believe
kept every
you. After you said I will send samples to Pirbright in June last year, and they were only received 7 months.
I never made an announcement about Pirbright in June. I don't know where you got that.
You really mentioned it last year that we will be sending this to Pirbright.
I never said anything about Pirbright in June. The Pirbright stuff has been done. But the Pirbright stuff wouldn't have helped us anyway in this situation. We know what vaccine strains are circulating here because we have our own reference laboratory. When we do the field testing, it picks up the SAT1, the SAT2, and SAT3. So even if we'd had the Pirbright there, it wouldn't have been able to help us in the immediate term. We've already fast-tracked now vaccines from other manufacturers, Dolvet and Biogenesis Bago.
But those aren't signed. Biogenesis deal is not a signed deal yet.
It will be signed in the next few days. We've got plenty of animal scientists and doctors. We've got the provincial heads of veterinary there. My head of biosecurity, Emily Mogajani, Dr. Mogajani, is my contact person in dealing with FMD. The Deputy Director, Sarache, is responsible to me for dealing with FMD. Those are the people that I interact with on a daily basis, and those are the people that report back to me on a weekly basis now about where we're at, what's being done, and progress against the plan that we're intending to implement.
Does it not concern you, though, that your Director of Animal Health has been on leave during this national outbreak? She's been on leave for a very long time. She doesn't attend meetings either.
But it does concern me. And what I'm telling you is that steps have been taken in the department, and I'm not going to get into them now on a live television program, but steps have been taken. It's my job to ensure there's accountability throughout the ministry. And when people have not been doing their job, they will be held accountable. But there are processes that you have to follow to that. I can't, as I've said, arrive in an office and say to somebody, you're fired, you're not. But that is also why I specifically put Dr. Mogajani in charge of the process in terms of FMD. She has extensive experience. She's now the Chief Director of Biosecurity in the department, and she is the person who's sitting in meetings with me, who's sitting on the task team, who's sitting on the coordinating committees, and she is the person.
But the Director of Animal Health is the only person who has the powers to sign off those permits.
Well, she will sign those permits off. There's been no permits that have not been signed off for any of the vaccines that have been applied for. They will be signed off. And where people are obstructing or getting in the way, they will be moved out the way. I don't know how more plainly I can put it to you.
There has been a concern that your attention is also diverted. You're the DA leader, it's an election year. While there's this FMD outbreak, one, you were abroad at some point. Two, you're still campaigning for your party, as a DA leader would do, but there's a national outbreak going on.
Well, this has been my number one priority. And yes, I was abroad. I went to Berlin for Green Week for 2 days, in which I met with my Argentinian and Turkish counterparts to ask for their assistance, and have secured 2 scientific delegations, one from Germany and one from Ireland, that are going to be coming out here to assist us getting on top of FMD. So that is what I was in Green Week doing, and I cut it to the bare minimum of 2 days. So I don't understand how that is seen as problematic when you're out there getting resources internationally from people who've been through this crisis before to come out and assist us. Secondly, I am a politician. If I wasn't a politician, I wouldn't be a minister. So I'm unsure why this would be a problem. It's like saying that the health minister, who's got to deal with a COVID crisis, is also a politician.
You spoke about budgets as well, 2 billion rand that you mentioned. Who's going to pay for these vaccinations?
Well, the state will pay for the majority of the vaccines, but in collaboration with the private sector, as I said earlier, for the very first time, we allowed the industry bodies to purchase vaccines themselves for their members. So the feedlot associations and the abattoir associations were able to purchase vaccines which they can use. So there will be an opportunity for them to do that. If they want to vaccinate at a much speedier scale, they can make arrangements to do so. And as I said, we will continue to collaborate and work wherever we can to ensure that we have the scale of vaccination at the pace we would like it.
There's a rumor going around that commercial farmers will have to pay some 300 rand and communal farmers won't have to pay. Can you just clarify how this is going to work?
Generally, the state would pick up the tab for people who can't afford to pay for it. Where there are private players, there is always a contribution that's required in terms of the FMD vaccine. That's how it works all over the world.
Where are the farmers going to get this money from? They're struggling as it is to even feed these cattle.
Well, you've got to, when you go into farming, you've got to plan for vaccinations that you may need. Rift Valley fever, brucellosis, there's a variety of diseases, and it's your requirement as a farmer to vaccinate and ensure that you have the money put aside there. But I've said we will make sure that what we do is to work as hard as possible to bring the price down. I don't foresee 300 rand a dose being the price that people have to pay.
How are you going to ensure that past mistakes don't happen? For instance, in the past when the vaccine was then sold to OBP and then the OBP put a huge markup and sold it to your department, How are you going to ensure that we don't have a repeat of the state selling to the state?
Well, we've had meetings with OBP and expressed to them very clearly that this is a national emergency and that they need to come to the party. Now, obviously, you can't expect them to be the receiving agent and the storage facility and not expect them to be able to just recoup those costs. So what we've said to them is, we're happy to look at you recouping your cost of transport and storage and dispatching, but you really can't be making a profit out of something when there's a national crisis.
Design Biologics has come up quite a bit. Now, they are experienced, they have the ability to manufacture, store, and distribute, and of course, trace the virus. Are they going to be involved in this in any way?
Well, they are. They're the agents, they're the South African agents for the Biogenesis Bago vaccine. So they're the people we have to deal with to bring in the vaccine, to get it to where it needs to go. And we would hope that they would also be involved in the process of the rollout as the agents of Biogenesis Bago. Biogenesis Bago have said very clearly to us they want to be involved in the rollout of the vaccine, so I sincerely hope they will be.
And they will be working with Design Biologics?
Who?
For the rollout, Biogenesis Bago?
Well, Design Biologics is the local South African agent for Biogenesis Bago. So Biogenesis Bago is not supplying directly to South Africa, they're supplying through Design Biologics. And Design Biologics are their representatives, so we have to work with them, just as we work with JuneVax, who are responsible for the Dolvet vaccine from Turkey. Although it's a Turkish vaccine, they have a local agent, which is JuneVax. It's a private company, and we have to work with both Design Biologics and JuneVax in order to facilitate the inflow of the vaccine.
Minister, with the I'll ask you again, with the private-public partnerships, will that process be sent out to tender?
No, it won't be sent out to tender. A, we don't have the time for tenders. And B, it's state helping and the private sector helping the state. We didn't see Discovery having to do a tender to help the vaccination centre that they put up at the RCC and other parts of the country. So we're in a emergency. We now need all hands on deck, and it is a matter of state procuring the vaccines, the rollout to be assisted between state and private.
The facility that was actually designed to be able to manufacture the vaccines, we actually visited it in Pretoria, and it looks dilapidated. There's not much going on there. You've got a few security guards with walkie-talkies. Members of the public, we saw members of the public walking in and out, not even guided or even stopped in any way whatsoever. What's the state going on there?
Well, the state is that we've put aside money now for a mid-scale facility to be built at the ARC. And the ARC are going to take responsibility for ensuring that that particular laboratory is built to the correct specification, and it is funded and work is commencing. And that is how they will be able to, during February, provide us with 20,000 doses of vaccine per week, working up to 960,000 vaccines at the end of the year.
And with the conversation of trying to, bring in more competition, does this mean that farmers will be able to go straight to their private vet or have their private vet come for these vaccinations?
Absolutely. We want the private veterinarians to assist us with this. But what's not going to happen is that there's a willy-nilly free for all, where everybody can just vaccinate at will. And there's a very good reason for that. We've seen what happened in KwaZulu-Natal when you have vaccines just being brought into the country illegally, for instance, the Kenyan vaccine. And 2 shipments of those were caught by the Border Management Authority. Those vaccines can introduce strains that are not present in South Africa and cause big problems. So it has to remain under control of veterinarians, whether they be private or public, animal health technicians, whether they be private or public. The second reason is that if we want to get to becoming FMD free as a country, we need to be able to meet the international requirements set out by the World Organization of Animal Health. And that means vaccination with surveillance. So we need to, every vaccine that is applied needs to have a surveillance project or protocol with it. Now, vets, paravets, private vets, animal health technicians have a responsibility in terms of their profession to adhere to those.
Just for the record, did you or did you not block Designed Biologics from entering the market?
Well, how would I have blocked Designed Biologics from entering the market? They are the agents for Biogenesis Bago, who we are putting a lot of pressure on SAPRA now to sign off, so we can sign off the import permit so that I can get the vaccine in here. Why would I block Design Biologics? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Just like I didn't block JuneVax, also a private company who applied to bring in vaccine.
So you never blocked Design Biologics?
But why would it?
As the department?
No, why would it be? Why would we announce a policy of bringing in vaccine into the country through the private sector and private sector companies and then block them? And I think I've certainly, in all of my interactions I've had with Design Biologics, I've been very open to discussions around partnerships, and they are the local agent for Biogenesis Bago and are actively involved now in the procurement of vaccines and bringing them into South Africa. I don't understand how that is blocking.
They are actively involved. Do they have the correct paperwork as well? Do they have the permits they need?
SAPRA would have to determine that. That doesn't fall under my department. It's health. Once that paperwork has been assessed, we will have an answer. Once SAPRA triggers that for us, we can sign an import permit and get the vaccine into the country, which is what I'm trying desperately to do.
But who signs the import permit?
Well, it'll be the Animal Health Director or her nominee. In this instance, the Dolvet vaccine was signed by Mike Modisani, and Mr. Modisani will sign this particular import permit as well.
So the archaic law that says it has to be signed by Dr. Maja is not the case in terms of her being the animal.
Dr. Modisani is well within his power to be able to sign off on those import permits, as he did when he signed off the Dolvet vaccine import permit. And in fact, Dolvet have got a second application in to SAPRA, and we're waiting for that to proceed through the SAPRA process so we can also sign that off.
So it doesn't lie, that power, with the Director of Animal Health
only? It'll be the Director of Health or her nominee. And in this instance, Mr. Modisani, as I said, is empowered to sign off on the import permits, as he did 2 or 3 weeks ago when the JuneVax vaccine was approved for import.